mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about episode 3 of Showtime series Yellowjackets, entitled The Dollhouse. I really enjoyed this episode. There's a whole lot of stuff that I found really intriguing in each of the plot lines that they covered this week. So this week we spend time with the girls at the crash site. They decide that I'm not going to jump to what they decide, but they have a whole situation where they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to stay at the crash site or go to this lake that Taissa spotted. Then we also have a storyline going on with Taissa in multiple points in time, not just at the crash site. I'm struggling with that crash site. Yeah, I'm gonna say crash site. I know it. I know I'm gonna say it. But we have them there. We have adult Taissa, but then we also have some time with Taissa as a child. So I'm gonna talk about that obviously. But I liked what they did with Taissa in this episode. And then we also have this kind of like this weird kind of, I don't want to call it a stalking situation, but like this love square with Shauna, Jeff, Adam is that guy from the car guy, and this Bianca who texted Jeff. So like they spent time in each of those 3 plot lines, and I found each of them to be pretty interesting. So I'm gonna start with Taissa, present day, and I'm gonna talk about not just each time period that we spend with Taissa, but also kind of like how they connect a little bit. So present day, Taissa's opponent runs an attack ad on her, and she's trying to decide how she wants to respond. She finds out that his daughter has a drug problem, has been to rehab a bunch of times, and she's 18, so she's fair game to put in an ad. And she's really thinking about this, right? And her wife says something to the effect of like, you know, when you started to do this, you said you were going to stick to the issues and you weren't going to do this kind of dirty shit, and stick to that. But we see Taissa really considering taking the low road. And it felt to me the whole time that she was going to do it. And at the end, ultimately, she ends up really just kind of like threatening the guy. Like, hey, don't. And she literally says, don't fuck with me. But I'm wondering how what we're seeing with Taissa at the crash site, how the events of that are going to kind of like feed into how she handles this situation with this attack ad and her opponent. Because I feel like we don't have it yet. I thought we were gonna get in this episode like how we tie in how she arrives at the decision that she makes regarding the opponent who did the attack ad. I thought that they were going to tie that into the events at the crash site, and they didn't, not quite. But I feel like that still could potentially be happening. And it's like a thing where it's like this is going to escalate to her actually doing something more than just threatening this guy. And it's probably going to tie into something that we see in the past with her. And speaking of in the past, we also see her, she kind of like, she finds this lake and she leads this movement to kind of like vote on whether or not they're going to stay put at the plane or if they're going to go to the lake and give that a shot. Especially since they're going to have to build a stretcher for Coach Hobbles with the one leg. And then ultimately they vote to go to the lake. And an interesting aspect of that was that Shauna voted to go and Jackie voted to stay. I think this is going to continue to manifest this issue, I guess, between Jackie and Shauna. I feel like there's way more there than we know right now. Because I don't feel like Shauna was messing with Jeff just on some like teenage shit. Like I feel like there's something deeper going on there. And we're going to find that out later. But they ultimately decide to go to the lake. They're, you know, swimming, having a good time. There's a moment, and I have this in my kind of like my thoughts that I want to talk about at the end. But since I felt like the Taissa stuff was the most interesting here, I'm going to talk about this real quick. I noticed Taissa when the girls were playing some, you know, game or whatever where somebody was on their shoulders and they were like, the person on the shoulders was, you know, trying to knock the other one down. And Taissa was looking at Van very affectionately. And it made me wonder if that was kind of like the moment where she realized she might like women, or it could be an and as well, or if Van kind of like becomes her like first relationship and they build something over the course of the time spent in the woods that's going to kind of make it so that that's going to be kind of like Thaisa's first, dipping her toe into the women into the women field of dating. But I thought that was interesting too, watching her kind of like take charge and take that away from Jackie, because it was her idea to do the vote. Like if this had happened in, say, episode 2, maybe they just listen to Jackie and nothing happens. But Thaisa comes up with the idea to vote. The vote doesn't go Jackie's way, and now Thaisa starts to seem like she's in charge. We see her, forcing, who was it she forced to come in? I can't remember. Somebody was trying to stay outside. I think it was Lottie. Forced her to come in. She kind of like ran the whole thing about just kind of like owning that space, looking for, giving out jobs. You look for food, see what you can find. You look for if there's any weapons or anything like that. Like she kind of stepped into that leadership role in this episode. And then we also spend time with Thaisa as a child. She's around her grandmother, who looks to be on her literal deathbed. And I don't want to say right before she dies, but not too far before she dies, presumably we don't see her die. She sees a figure reflected in a mirror. And I thought that scene was really cool, by the way, how there was nothing there. And they showed it like 3 or 4 times, but only one of those times that we could see somebody there. But there's this person with no eyes. And the grandmother freaks out. Like, I thought this was a really good scene. And so now we know the grandmother sees the same individual that Sammy sees, that he put up, those papers to block in his window. And that raises more questions, which, I mentioned last week that I'm concerned about them raising too many questions and doing a little bit too much. But these are just kind of like more interesting. They're like kind of like spin-off questions from questions we already have, which that's a weird way to explain why I'm okay with it. But that's essentially why I'm okay with it, because it's not new questions. It's just more questions pertaining to the same thing. So now I'm wondering, did this skip a generation? Or 2 generations? Because this is Thaisa's grandmother. So do we know if Thaisa's mother saw eyeless women? Do we know if Thaisa? I mean, we haven't seen Thaisa see any eyeless women, and she seems pretty shocked by Sammy seeing them. But does she have this, but it manifests in a different way? Like I don't really want to say she was kind of like drawn to finding that dead body in the upstairs part of the attic because Lottie was already up there, but I don't know. I'm wondering, like, does it manifest in a different way for her? Does she not have this at all? Does it skip generations? Who knows? But clearly Sammy and the grandmother are seeing the same person. And I think that's interesting because for me, I know that, like, we don't know for sure if Sammy is even biologically related to Thaisa. I feel like he is. Like, she probably carried him, like, literally. And, that is her DNA. Like, he's not, like, adopted, or anything like that. I feel like he was, like, they did, like, what's it, artificial insemination or in vitro. I don't know the terms, but I do feel like he's probably actually related to her. So then that still makes me wonder, did it skip a couple generations? What's going on there? Who exactly is this woman? We see that it looks like her grandmother's eyes were actually like the irises or whatever were gone. They were just like completely white. Like what's up with that? And bleeding in this supernatural, because it's one thing when you're seeing visions, it's another thing when things in reality change or are affected by those visions that you see. So the reality of what's happening with whoever these visions are, is this a real threat? Are these just visions? I'm really interested in this supernatural stuff, and I like that they put this in here because I don't feel like it's too much. We have the survival stuff going on at the crash site. We have the present day things of them trying to like deal with how everything that happened in the woods affects them now as adults. But then we also have this kind of like supernatural kind of thing going on too. So like I dig all this stuff, and I like that they're putting this into the show. And then lastly, we have Sammy, who's already been weird as fuck. He hits a kid for talking shit about Thaisa, and then he gets his doll taken. And I thought the scene was really good, where he kind of like is demanding that she give him the doll back. But, she puts it up on a shelf, sends him to his room. She later comes to talk to him. They kind of hash it out. Seem like everything's going to be cool. He says he's going to get it back in the morning. And then she comes downstairs. She steps on a toy eye and then finds the doll in the middle of the floor, all kind of like dismembered with the eyes missing. Now, did Sammy do that? Or did the eyeless woman that he keeps seeing do that? And I also like how this episode is called The Dollhouse. And like Thaisa's house is literally the dollhouse. So I thought that was a nice touch. But yeah, it makes me wonder, like, okay, is Sammy kind of like seeing things? Is it manifesting through him and he did that? But how could he have gotten that? I mean, it's not impossible, but you know, how would he have gone up in the middle of the night to somehow climb up to that thing, get that doll, and dismember it when it was so important to him? So I'm thinking like her house is haunted, or maybe her family is haunted. I'm just curious as to why this is only manifesting through Sammy right now. And I'm confident that we're going to get a pretty good answer about that as well. But really interesting stuff there. So I like everything they did with Thaisa in this episode. And I feel like this is all going to kind of like connect in some way to how she's going to handle this guy that she's running against in present day. Like, this shit's going to go left, or something's going to come up. Maybe Sammy's thing gets out in the public eye, and now that's something that's known about her that clearly she would want to be bearing, because she's so focused on bearing all the shit that happened in the past after the plane crash that maybe she misses, you know, an opportunity to bury whatever's going on with Sammy and stop that from getting out in the press. So lots of interesting stuff going on with Thaisa. We also go on a road trip with Misty and Nat. And Misty, I'm so interested in Misty because we know how manipulative she is. We know how weird she is. But now I'm throwing in another thing, like, she's sloppy. Like, why would you put that, what was it, like a battery cable or something, whatever it was that she used to stall Nat's car, why would you put it in your glove box? Like, put it in your pocket and then throw it in the trash or something. Like, why would you leave the evidence? And then that made me wonder, is she dumb or is she doing that on purpose? Like, is she that manipulative? Because last week I talked about how manipulative she is. Is she that manipulative that she would allow herself to be caught to kind of just fuck with Nat? Like, I don't know. I can't put it past her. I think she's probably really smart, and she allowed herself to be caught. Why? I don't know. But they go on a road trip to find Travis. We find out that after they break into his house that Travis and Nat were actually together. Like, there's a picture. He has a picture of them together, and it's her as an adult. So this isn't from a very long time ago. And then they ultimately find well, for one, they get arrested for even breaking into his house. And then Nat calls Thaisa to help get her out. We find out that Thaisa was paying for her rehab, which I think that's going to be something that might be a factor down the road. And then Misty gets them out. They go to his job because they found a pay stub for some place. It looks like a big barn or something like that. And they find him hanged there. And Nat believes that he did not kill himself, that he was murdered. And there is a paper that says, "Tell Nat she was right." And she says she doesn't know what she was right about, but she's right about this, and that he didn't kill himself, that he was murdered. And this further feeds into my theory that there is somebody who was at the crash site. I gotta just find another term. The plane crash area. There was somebody who was there who we have not yet seen, who is the person who is also messing with everybody. Or maybe we have seen the person and they just haven't gotten to the point where it was one of the people who we have not yet seen as an adult. But somebody is sending the cards with the impaled kind of stick figure there. Somebody is, it was carved into a tree prior to them finding somebody in the tree. And then now we have Travis being dead, Nat believing it was a murder, and then a note that says, "Tell Nat she was right." So I'm guessing that they probably discussed this person as someone who they couldn't trust, or that might be about to talk, or that was going to come after them, or whoever this person is. And I'm wagering it's probably adult Jackie, but I don't know. I feel like it's somebody we haven't seen as an adult, or it's somebody we haven't seen at all, who is rightly resentful of something. And Jackie's going to have a lot to be resentful of. She's already seems to have lost her leadership role. She's got whatever's going on. that leg is looking pretty rough. So, I don't know. They might be building a case for Jackie to be resentful of everyone. and that maybe adult Jackie is the person who is sending out these threats, because they have purposely not even asked or raised the question of where is adult Jackie. They just haven't shown her. So we are left to wonder, where is adult Jackie? And they're planting, you know, ideas like with the girl who was impaled at the beginning, having on Jackie's necklace, and then Jackie gave that to Shauna, but we know it's not Shauna. Like, they're doing so much with Jackie that's mysterious that makes me think that Jackie might be the person who's sending these threats. But whatever the case may be, somebody who we have not seen, or somebody who we've seen as a kid and not as an adult, I think is the person that's sending these threats, and that ultimately probably killed Travis. Although that seems, well, I was going to say that seems extreme, like they weren't, like they didn't go through what they went through for 19 months. But I like that aspect of it too. It's really got me wondering. And this is the kind of show where you could just theorize your ass off, and I dig that quite a bit. And then lastly, we have the what I call it, the love square with with Shauna, Jeff, Bianca, who texted him, and Adam, who I just don't buy. I don't buy Adam being this big giant coincidence like he plays himself off to be. Adam, when he got rear-ended, he immediately started flirting. That was weird. He just so happens to own a car shop where he can fix her car and offers to do it for free. And then now he randomly is at this hotel talking about, yeah, I just wanted a martini and I have some creative space nearby. Like, fuck out of here. No. Adam's up to no good. And then I think that Shauna is going to have sex with Adam out of, like, revenge toward Jeff for having sex with Bianca at this hotel. But I think that that's going to be all wrong. I'm not buying that Jeff is cheating on her. I think that it's something different. It's going to come to light probably in the same moment that Jeff finds out that Shauna was with Adam. It's probably going to get revealed like Bianca's like his therapist or something like that, and he was secretly meeting with a therapist, or like she's like a travel agent or something, and he's like planning a trip, a special trip or some sort of special gift or something for Shauna. Like, it's going to be something that's completely innocent, but of course it looks really bad right now. But that's the only angle that I'm just not buying. I enjoyed watching this all unfold, so it's not like an aspect of the story that I don't like, but it's the easiest one, I think, that's to kind of like predict what's going to happen, because I feel I can't really pinpoint this makes me think that, this maybe, but they're leaning really, really hard into the Jeff is cheating on Shauna angle, and we have seen nothing to believe that Jeff is that kind of guy. Whereas we know how Shauna gets down. She stole Jeff from Jackie. She is now like as I am talking right now, Shauna is probably fucking Adam. So we know how Shauna gets down, but we don't know. We haven't seen anything to think that Jeff might do that. So I feel like this one is probably like the most obvious thing, the most obvious kind of trick that the show is doing, and it's going to be something harmless that he's meeting with Bianca about, probably something for Shauna. And yeah, that's going to come out when Jeff finds out, like, wow, you're cheating on me with this guy. And she's like, well, you're cheating on me with Bianca. And he's like, well, actually, Bianca, I was planning, she's my travel agent. And I don't know. But it's going to be something like that, I think. So all those storylines are really good. So I'm going to wrap up with a couple of thoughts, and then I'll see you guys next week for episode 4. Was this the first time that there was, like, opening credits and theme music? I feel like I hadn't seen that before. And it makes me wonder if this was the first time. But I'm not paying close enough attention, and I wasn't about to go check the first two. I just figured I'd put it out there, and one of you guys will tell me in the comments. I already mentioned the thing about Taissa looking at Van in the lake. That's one. And then my favorite, just little tidbit of a drop of thing that they did in this episode that I like, that makes me look forward to the future episodes, is we see Lottie take her last pill, which we know is her, schizophrenia medication. So things should get interesting really interesting with Lottie really soon. So, oh, and then lastly, we got to find out who that was in that upstairs in that cabin, and how that's going to tie into everything. And also, what did they even, like, she saw like a reflection that told them there was something up in the woods. But like, if there's, that place looks like it hadn't been lived in for a decade. What did they see that caused them to go up there? Is it the person that I just mentioned, that I'm like the person that might be there that we don't know yet? Maybe that person did something to kind of like draw them up there. Who knows? But that's what I like about this show. Really interesting. Has some scary moments. But it allows you to like really get your brain working and asking all these questions. Who is this? What is that? What do you think is going to happen? And shows that allow you to theorize like that, I always rock with those shows. So really good episode. I'm really enjoying this show. And I'll see you guys next week for episode 4. Peace.